Welcome to our I Am Workshop Conversation Series, a transformative journey designed to inspire self-discovery and ignite your creative spirit. With your hosts, Ana Maria Davalos, Maria Lanes, and Maclovia Martel.
Sí, hablo español.
Oh, very good.
Hablas
bien.
She's sí, sí hablo bien,
Ecuadorian.
porque tenía como 13 años ahí.
Qué bueno. Entonces hablas perfecto.
Sí.
Today's guest has had some profound spiritual experiences as a child and as an adult. She's the author of Love Letters to Your Soul, Chrystal Rae.
Chrystal, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it.
So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So on this show, we talk about experiences that have transformed our lives. And can you tell us about your experiences that have changed you from Chrystal before and Chrystal now?
Okay.
Your transformation.
Your beautiful transformation. Yes.
Well, that will take us way back to my childhood, just to give you a little bit of context. And I'm going to take that and make it very concise for you.
Okay.
But that it's important to talk about that so that when I talk about the near-death experience I had when I was 35, it makes sense. So when I was a child, I grew up in what I call a functional, dysfunctional house, which is a normal house in the United States. My mom was an alcoholic, unfortunately, but undiagnosed, and my dad was mostly absent. So it was a very trying childhood. I grew up feeling like I was an adult in the house at a very early age. I don't know that I really ever had a childhood. I remember not really knowing how to laugh as a child. I was such a serious kid. And it was, it was so hard because you never knew as a child, like what you could do to make it better for your parents. And of course, it's not the child's fault, but I think the kids always feel like they're to blame and they hadn't arrived and the parents might be better, or, you felt like a burden. But on top of that, my mom was pretty physically and verbally abusive, and really the verbal abuse, like the constant demeaning and saying that she wished that we hadn't been born and that kind of stuff was really hard. But there was moments of like physical abuse that was really trying, and this one morning in particular that I want to talk about. Not that it was any different than any other morning, except for a very spectacular thing that happened. So on this morning, I heard my mom coming down the hall, and we never knew who was in trouble. And it was early in the morning, maybe 6 or 7. But this particular morning, it was me. And I remember I was just kind of curled in my bed, kind of afraid. She came in, pulled me down the hall, took me to the kitchen, and showed me a black spot on the ceiling in the kitchen. And I immediately knew, like, along with all my other little girl chores, I had not gotten to that. And she'd asked me to clean the black spot. So rather than argue, I just said, I'm sorry. And I got up and I started cleaning. And this is when it gets really interesting because I started having this very innocent and pure conversation with God, which I didn't know, by the way, even existed or if there was truly a God. I had heard about God, but God in our house, I always say, wasn't welcome unless he was damned. So that was it. That's what we knew about God in my house. But I had heard the stories of Jesus and I had heard the stories of heaven and hell. And I remember contemplating this. And again, I'm really young. I'm probably between, time is a blur for me, but between 10 and 12, something like that. And having this conversation with God. And I remember thinking that it didn't make sense to me that you would make us flawed and imperfect and then punish us for being flawed and imperfect.
That's advanced thinking for a
Yeah.
child. Yeah.
Yes, it really is. And then I remember also thinking that, you know, I didn't want to be good to get accolades to get into heaven, to open the pearly gates. And I didn't want to be good to avoid hell. And it occurred to me, and this is like such an amazing moment for me in my life, and we talk about transformational moments. This is like one of the most transformational moments because it occurred to me in that moment because I didn't want to be good to get to heaven. I didn't want to be good to avoid hell. I just wanted to be a good person. And it was like, oh, I was like, oh my God, that means I am a good person. And it was like my first real sense of self-worth. And it was pinnacle for the rest of my life because it was no matter what my parents said, no matter what happened, I knew in my heart I'm a good person. And that was important to me
Mm-hmm.
to feel
Were
like
were they religious, your family or
not
not?
at that time. They weren't
Mm-hmm.
religious at that time. They were, I think, more agnostic or atheist. And again,
Mm-hmm.
the only time we heard God is when he was damned. So we didn't really hear a lot about God in the house. So, so I started this conversation with God, and I remember continuing the dialogue. And I thought, well, if you are God, and if it is true that you could part the Red Seas and you could do all these miraculous things, then I wanted to know that you exist, God,
Mm-hmm.
before I died, not after, because that felt like cheating. And by the way, if you could help my mom stop drinking, that would be even more miraculous in my mind. And I continued just in this kind of meditative stance on this counter. And with that, I turned around in kind of in a daze, almost in a trance. I walked off the counter. And
Mm-hmm.
this is when it gets really interesting and very unexpected
Mm-hmm.
because typically when you fall, like if you were falling off a counter, it'd be like stepping into a empty swimming pool. The physics of it is that your head is going to fall,
Mm-hmm.
which is what happened to me. But then suddenly I was suspended in what I can only call a whirling vortex of time and space. I was in the middle, and this whirling vortex, almost like a tornado, but with no sound, was wrapped around me, either going up or I was falling down. I couldn't really tell. There was three of me. There was the body, and
Mm-hmm.
there was the soul that lived within the body, and there was this all-knowing observer. And what I related to was the aspect of the divine that lived within the body. So the soul essence that we might relate to on this planet
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
soul.
Mm-hmm.
And
Would that
I
be, would that also be God? That's God. It's a,
the
like,
omnipresent, all-knowing observer.
yes.
Truthfully, from where I stand now,
Oh, your higher self.
yeah,
By
I think
yourself. Yeah,
all
because
three are an aspect of the divine. The
Mm-hmm.
body, the soul,
Okay.
and the all-knowing observer are all the same thing. So
Okay.
I started falling down, and I ended up in this serene, black night that was punctuated with brilliant lights. And I had this presence that was holding me like unconditional, immeasurable, immutable care, support, love. And
Mm-hmm.
it transmitted or maybe just downloaded, because it wasn't really even
mm-hmm.
like a word, it was a knowing
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
that this is time and space. And I was told, and this is really poignant because later in my life it would show up again, that there's no empty space in the universe, that everything is connected. And those in the distance, those are stars, and that's what you are. And then with
Mm-hmm.
that,
Wow.
boom, I was back in my body. But here's
Wow.
the funny thing. I did not hit my head, crash into the floor. I landed just like a cat on my feet.
Wow. Wow.
And so don't ask me how I got that because I'm not sure. It's really statistically impossible to
Was
fall.
anyone there in the room or just
No, it was just me.
okay.
So, and of course, when something like that happens and you have no context for it,
Mm-hmm.
I immediately thought, well, I must have fallen, hit my head, got back up.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely must have a bruise or a bump, or I must
Mm-hmm.
be bleeding. So I ran to the bathroom and I was looking for, signs of a fall.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no sign. So I called my brother and I was like, Mark, Mark. And he was a year younger than me. And he came running. He's like, what's up? What's going on? And I was like, God saved me. I fell off the counter. There was three of me. There was this all-knowing observer. There was
Mm-hmm.
this soul entity. And he was like, what? Have you
You're
lost your mind?
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
three of you.
literally,
Yeah.
you're crazy. Like
Yeah.
he literally said, you need a straitjacket. And then we both started laughing.
Mm-hmm.
And when we stopped laughing, because we were kids, I said, Mark, I know this is so hard to believe, and it happened to me, but
Mm-hmm.
never forget that it happened, because I don't want to think in the future that this was a dream. So the
Mm-hmm.
universe is so beautiful, so divine, gave me a witness. So it wasn't a witness to the fall, but a witness to the fact that I had had the experience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because my brother is a minister now, a Christian minister, and we have very different philosophical
Use. Yeah.
beliefs. But it's like a Christian minister is my witness, which is kind of funny.
Wow.
The universe definitely has a sense of humor, no
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
doubt. So, all right, so that's the
Yeah.
context I wanted to give you. Fast forward, it was an unhealthy childhood. The abuse was unbearable. I left home at 17. I pushed all, well, I should probably give you the context of this. I started calling Sunday school buses after this event and walking to churches. And I was baptized 5 times because I didn't feel it. And I wanted that true experience of God, that true experience of unconditional
Mm-hmm.
love
Mm-hmm.
that I had felt in this out of body experience. And finally, like the situation at home got so bad that I left home and I had to push all of that aside because it was more important to survive. And I was
Mm-hmm.
still in school. And I remember I had done all my research. Like you can leave home, I guess at 17 back in that time,
Mm-hmm.
and not be put into, like a home or something
Mm-hmm.
for wayward children.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I knew I could do this. And I remember I went and I was working at Fur's cafeteria at the time. I had started working, you guys, like really, really young. Like I
Was this
was,
in Texas or was that?
this was in El
In
Paso.
Dallas. Oh,
Okay.
This
El
is in El
Paso.
Paso. And I remember calling my mom, and I really just wanted her to say, I love you, come home, we'll work this out. But she did the opposite of that. She said, if you don't come home, you never existed. I never want to see you
Hmm.
again. You're going to
Hmm.
be a drug addict. You're going to be a
Mm-hmm.
prostitute. You're going to be, you don't have a home if you don't come back. And it broke my heart on one
Yeah.
level. It was devastating to hear
Mm-hmm.
that. But on another level, it really made me mad. And it was like the
Yeah.
perfect thing for her to say because it inspired me to like prove her wrong. I made straight A's. I had
Uh-huh.
started working at 13. My first job was
Mm.
at A&W Root Beer.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember I lied on the application because you have to be 16 and I was only 13. As I told you guys, I was like a really adult child
Mm-hmm.
in a world where everyone else was still just
Well, you
playing
had
with
to
dolls.
grow up fast,
Yeah.
very fast.
So I put I was 16, I got the job and I started working really young. I was babysitting. I used to sell flowers on the street corner. I used to cut grass.
Wow.
I used to pick weeds. I was very industrious, me and my brother and
Mm-hmm.
my sister. So anyway, fast forward, all of that happened. I was modeling, I was working. I was offered a contract in New York and they were sending me to Milan for a year. But at this time I was dating my kid's dad, and he was like not having it. He was like, "Don't leave, let's get married." And I always wanted a family, and he was Latin, and they had a big family, and I was really, really wanting a family. And so I got married instead of going to Milan, because I decided that love was more important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it
After
was
everything you've been through, yeah.
yeah, and I loved his family. I still do, and I loved him. Like I unconditionally loved him. But we didn't really have a whole lot in common. Our values were
Mm-hmm.
off. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I know now as an adult, one of the most important things that you will do in your life is, let me turn that off, is who you will marry. That it's like a big factor scientifically of the level of your success and your happiness quotient in life. And our values were completely misaligned, although he's a really wonderful guy. So we ended up getting divorced after 13 years and two
Mm-hmm.
children.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember coming back to the United States because we were living in Mexico. And my children speak, well, at least my daughter speaks French, Spanish, and English, and
Mm,
my
very
son
Wow.
speaks
good.
Spanish. They're fluent in these languages. So, um, but anyway, I got divorced. I moved back to Dallas, but I was really sad because I felt like like the thing that I always wanted was to be loved and to feel worthy and to feel appreciated. And I felt like almost like an imposter, like I was the ugly sisters of Cinderella and he had discovered that the slipper didn't fit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Oh, yeah.
my mom was right about me. I'm horrible, I'm a loser. This is, and it was all these childhood traumas kept coming back up
Mm-hmm.
with divorce. So I spent about a year and a half just kind of mourning the divorce because again, even though we weren't aligned, I truly
Mm-hmm.
love this man.
Mm-hmm.
And I still do. I mean, I'm not in love with him, but I'll always love him. It's a soul companion for me. So about after a year and a half, I decided that I should get out of the house and I should date and I shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
just lock myself away. And it wasn't healthy for me. I didn't really want to get married again because I had children, small children, but I thought it would be healthier. I was invited to go to this trip in Vail with a nice gentleman that I had met at the gym. His name was Jim.
I met Jim from the gym.
I met,
Well, no coincidences.
right?
Synchronicity. Yeah.
Well, he invited me, and I said, no, no, I don't think I'm ready for that. I just couldn't even imagine like being with another man because I was, it just didn't feel right. And he said, no, no, I'm not talking about that. He's like, invite someone, bring a friend with you. My kids are coming. Let's go. It'll
That's
be
nice.
fun. Go
Hmm.
skiing. I don't even like skiing, truthfully, but I just thought because I don't like the cold, I like the hot, which is why I have hot yoga studios. So anyway, I said okay, and I invited my cousin Carmen, who was this beautiful Latin girl with these soft skin, big thick hair, big doe eyes, and she's gorgeous. She was like 40 years old at the time. I
Hmm.
remember I called her and I said she actually played the clarinet for the Dallas Opera. And I said,
Wow.
Oh.
Carmen, let's go on this trip and it'll be fun. And so we went, but again, I don't think I was ready for it. And his kids were adult children, and they had some habits that I didn't really like. They were drinking a lot and smoking and cussing, and I was like, this is just not fun.
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
just wasn't what I wanted to be doing. So about 3 days early, I told my friend, I said, hey, I think Carmen and I are going to go back. I appreciate it. I'm not sure I was ready to date. Thank you. And I think he was truthfully, he's like, okay, go ahead. And
He
so
got the message.
he got the message. And so then we were heading back to the airport. He took a wrong turn. We were in this small red Jeep and he took a wrong turn. We were all laughing in the car and we are having a good time. It wasn't like, he was mad about me leaving or anything. Um, and then the car started to spin because it was icy roads and it was kind of a
Hmm.
blizzard. So, in Vail, suddenly the weather can just suddenly change, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah. Yeah.
so it suddenly changed, and the roads were really icy. It was hard to see. He lost control of the car. A car coming down the mountain couldn't see us, couldn't stop, didn't have brakes, whatever, and hit my side of the car. And this is when the story really gets spectacular, because it's unbelievable that any of us survived because we were hit by this car going 50, estimated to be going 50 miles an hour. My side of the car, we were thrown off of this cliff, which by the way was 80-foot fall. We
Wow.
we hit at 25 feet, but then we flipped
Hmm.
head over heels for 10 times before we slammed into a wall of ice.
Wow.
Wow.
And in the midst of this, like I was having this incredible out of body experience. I was both in the car and a short distance above the car, held again in this luminous presence, not
Hmm.
necessarily a being, but a luminous presence,
Hmm.
was holding me, supporting me, cradling me, and comforting me really as I watched my body, the car wreck, and everything slowed down as though to the point where and I was, as the car was turning and hitting and all that, I remember Carmen was screaming. He was doing whatever he was doing with the wheel. And I remember I was like a Zen cat. I was just like, I was like, oh, I didn't know I was going to die today. And it was just
Hmm.
this calm, like, and
But you had already been there and you knew it was great. So
I
you
already
were,
been there. And
So
my
you felt you didn't have fear. You felt peace at that moment?
I felt absolute no
hmm,
fear, more
Uh-huh.
surprise than peace. I was
Uh-huh.
surprised, and I think this is probably an experience that for many people who die in like a car accident or some kind of tragic event, that they're not expecting, falling off a ladder, whatever it is,
There's
it's
confusion.
yeah, it's like it's a surprise. It's
hmm,
not like you've been in a bed for 3 months with cancer and you're going to die. You're kind
yeah.
of prepared for it. And I was a young woman. I had two small children,
Hmm.
and I was like, oh, it's not that I thought I was, immortal. It's just you sort of never think you're going to die until you're old or something.
Yeah.
And so I was like, my reaction was, and I remember verbally just saying this, like, oh, I didn't know I was going to die today. And with that, I looked back behind my shoulder and I saw Carmen, and I had never seen such fear, such
Hmm.
horror, such, you know, grasping in my whole life. And I remember all I could do is just feel compassion for her. And she was the one that got the brunt of the injuries because she was in the backs of this small Jeep, which had a roll bar. And so she was
Hmm.
hitting her head here, and then she was
Ah.
hitting her head here
Wow.
Hmm.
and she was screaming and it was and I just remember feeling so much compassion for her. And with that, I was again in this luminous space, and I was being shown my own life trajectory in a three-dimensional, 360-degree panoramic
Wow.
uh, view of my entire life, all instantaneously on the horizontal and vertical plane, meaning that I saw every single thought, intention, action, and the ripple of that in all directions. How one kind word rippled out into this wave of goodness, out into infinity of the universe, and likewise, when I had been cruel or unkind, that particular tsunami that had happened out of cruelty or unkindness. And I was shown all of this, but I was shown from a place of absolute compassion and love and no judgment. There was absolutely no judgment upon me except the judgment I brought upon myself.
But can you remember where you were? That was exactly where your body was, or you went somewhere else where you were shown all this like movie?
I was in my body and above the car wreck simultaneously at the same time. So
And
I
you
was
were shown
still,
there.
yeah, in this space. It was almost like I was hovering above in a luminous
Uh-huh.
space, and I was also within it. And 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 when I talk about like seeing this my life experience, it was instantaneously. I saw everything, all possibilities, which is hard to phantom. And I was shown every single aspect of it, which we can't even imagine. Like if you turn left instead of turning right, how that changes your life. The
Mhm.
smallest, you shut the window or you don't shut the window, and how these little
Split of a second.
yeah, and more importantly was like, why are you shutting the window? Are you angry? Are you happy? Are you
Mhm. Mhm.
trying to hurt someone by shutting the window? Or are you just cold? Like it was more, I was not only shown what I did, I was shown like the intention behind what I did and how it was so important. Like you have a butter knife, you can butter your bread or you can kill someone, right? It's the same thing. It's a butter knife.
Wow.
So
Is
I
it
Yeah.
was,
about choices? Is it sort of about
I was shown that we have free will
Mhm.
and that there's no wrong choice.
Mhm.
Even a wrong choice is the right choice in that moment because
Okay.
we don't know what we don't know until we know it in the future.
Mhm.
There's compassion for that. We come in with a limited consciousness to have the experience of being ourselves, like our
Hmm.
main mission in this life is to be ourselves in the most radiant version possible within the parameters and the predispositions that we choose to bring into. Like, for example, we could come in and be a woman, a man, we could be highly gifted in the music realm or in mathematics, or we could have a low IQ. We could be born to a meth mother and have addiction problems. And these are not punishments or rewards, it's soul choices. Many times there's a confusion because in some religious traditions they say, if you're a bad person, you come back and you're born into bad circumstances, which wasn't what I was shown or experienced. It was really everything that happens in every circumstance is the most loving expression possible for the growth of your soul, the expansion of your soul, which is why we exist, and for the expansion of the divine, because we're all aspects of the divine. So imagine what I
Wow.
was shown to be God was this incredible, all-encompassing light, that it was a container that contained everything, including itself.
Mhm.
And we, like fragments of light, burst out into the universe, almost like a
Mhm.
blossoming of a flower, because that which is most beautiful will come into existence for the experience of the experience.
Mhm.
And
Evolving has to do with how do you evolve with all these things, right?
right. For the experience of the experience, because it's a necessary experience. How do we know? Because it's happening. And because that was the most beautiful possibility for our soul. And that's hard to reconcile for many when they come into these really tragic circumstances
Well,
or
like you as a
exactly.
child.
Yeah.
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 Precisely.
Mhm.
I feel like I chose my mother in this lifetime because my mother and my daughter both had issues with alcohol. And in
Mhm.
the middle, I have never drank, never did drugs, never did anything. But I was a pivotal point in both
Mhm.
both of these very powerful women in my life who I love very much,
Mhm.
conquering their addictive qualities. So I think sometimes we come in as a bodhisattva, meaning that we come in service.
Yeah.
And sometimes we come in to make amends to someone that maybe we have hurt in another life, or to have an experience of being the victim of something that we perpetrated in another life. There's like so many
Yeah.
possibilities.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's
That's
just unfathomable. But I do believe that I chose my parents because I knew that my mom would say, if you don't come back, you don't have a home, you're going to fail in everything you do. And that would be the fire that made me successful. And that was exactly what I needed,
Hmm.
was to have someone say that. And probably in the soul realm, when we're choosing our parents and our children, she probably said, I'll come in with alcoholic tendencies. I'll be the one to hurt you. I'll be the one to promote your growth because I love you so much. Because that's
It's
a hard task.
it's like
yeah.
a theater group.
Yeah, it's a hard love. Yeah.
Let me play this character. I'll be the mom. I'm gonna drink a lot. You're gonna learn some lessons from me.
And because
It's
I'm doing that, you won't drink.
yeah, yeah.
And you won't do drugs, and you're going to be successful in your life, and you're going to be able to help others be successful in their life. So truthfully, like it's not what people think. It's not black and white in the universe.
No.
It's
Mhm.
all love, number one, and it's a little bit of gray, because we don't know what we don't know, and there's a bigger context to our reality than what we're shown. We come in with the veiled existence to have the veiled experience so that we can know ourselves more fully. For example, if we came in and we knew everything, it would be like playing a game of chess and you already know the outcome. So
Yeah.
Hmm.
what's the point? Having said that, I do want to mention that all our timelines are in completion. In other words, we talk about opening the window, taking a right turn, taking a left turn.
Hmm. Hmm.
What that means is, let's say I do take the left turn, that particular timeline is already in completion. And the reason that I'm on that timeline is because that's where I'm resonating.
Mm,
Equally, I could have turned right. Wouldn't be right or wrong. It would just be I turn right and then I'm on that timeline, which is also in completion because everything is already in completion and there's nothing new in the new universe. We just get to experience. Imagine being a soul and wanting to know what it feels like to love in a visceral way,
Hmm.
but understanding love
mm,
completely from this abstraction. But when you come in veiled and you get to choose love of your own accord, not
Hmm.
because you know better, but because the deep longing of your soul, of your essence, like me as a child, I just wanted to be good, right? That's not because you know that being good is the right thing to do, but that's the deep longing of your soul.
yeah. Yeah. In Spanish, we say the para qué. It's like the big why. I mean, I always say something and I get pushbacks a lot. Everything happens for a reason. And there's no coincidences. I don't know if you've heard of the all the it's kind of like resonating, but everything happens. It's we're all connected. I mean, I think you saw that or if you've experienced that.
Right. And I do believe that there is no coincidence, that everything is happening for you, not to you. There's
Mm,
a grand orchestration of life. Every single thing from the blade of grass underneath your feet to the wave that ripples over your toes have been waiting for an eternity for you to just simply pass by. The flower blossoming, just you casually catch it, has waited an eternity to blossom to be part of your joy. And this is how deeply loved we are. The cloud in the sky, the
wow.
drop of rain that touches you, like has been in creation
Yeah.
since 5 billion years, since the planet came into existence to finally rain down on you. And this is the kind of love that I was shown that was so all-encompassing and orchestrated. And most of the time, unfortunately, these things, the beauty of our life, the glory of being human and being alive, and all the beauty that happens goes unnoticed because we're so busy focusing on the forest that we don't see the trees.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. I love the part of for you, not to you. I mean, and Maglovia, it was part of the question you were going to ask. I mean, that has to do a lot about manifesting.
Or maybe like consciously manifest because everybody is manifesting nonstop.
That's
Okay,
very interesting.
So we're always manifesting
mhm.
our existence. Unfortunately, most of the time it's unconsciously or by default, or we're on an energetic current that takes us down a path that we think that we don't want, but that's where we're at. We're all manifesting everything into existence every moment. And so when we talk about manifesting, we're talking about shifting realities or shifting timelines. And I would say that very few people are able to do that, because what has to happen for that to be possible is you have to be in, let's say you have to embody that which you would like to bring into existence. In other words, you can't just say, oh, I want to be rich, because that's what most people would say when
Yeah.
they're manifesting, right? Because just the fact that you're saying I want to be rich is an acknowledgement that you're not rich.
That you
Yeah.
have
You come
lack.
from lack. Yeah.
It comes from lack. So instead of that, it would be to look at the richness of your life, like the endless blue sky, the grass under your feet, the endless possibilities.
I
And
am.
from my perspective, like true wealth, true is to be free, to choose. Because if you think about it, like, let's think about CEOs that every minute of their life, they make millions of dollars, but every minute of their life is calculated. You have a meeting in the morning at 10 o'clock, then you have to get on a plane, then you have to get to here, then you're going to Europe, and you're coming back. They're not free. They're
Yeah.
not free,
It's
but
like
they
being in
are freely
prison. Yeah.
choosing that. That's what they're manifesting. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, what is wealth in you? For me, wealth is freedom to do what I want with my time and share my energy with people like you that I love
Yeah.
and care
Joy
about.
and bliss.
And
That's they don't have time to go to the beach and soak their feet in the water for for an hour
and
like I
maybe
did the other day.
in the defense of that lifestyle, not to make it wrong, I mean, maybe that is their bliss in this lifetime.
Yeah.
Maybe getting their toes in the water wouldn't be blissful to them. So we're all doing what
Yeah.
is right for our soul. And maybe part of their bliss is making a lot of money and helping underprivileged children. Like, we don't know. Like,
Yeah.
it's always
And it depends on
There
the
is no wrong.
definition. Yeah,
There is no
yeah.
right.
There's
There is
no wrong and right, and it depends on the definition. It's like I always ask clients, I work with C-levels, and what is success? Success has so many definitions, and success for me can be doing social service, be just happy, and what Crystal say, be free. Wealth doesn't give you freedom.
no, not necessarily. I mean,
Yeah.
you know. So to continue on with the story, I'm falling down this mountain in this out of body experience. I'm shown these different timelines, and I'm shown three very important things, which kind of interesting to share. Because the first thing I was shown is that I had never really experienced the sun rising or setting. And of course, I'm like 35 years old. I had experienced this. But the way I was shown it is that because I had like glazed over my eyes in my life, I basically wanted to be good, but I had a lot of responsibility. You know, I was a good daughter, I was a good wife, I was a good ex-wife, I was a good mother, I was good this, but it was like a heavy backpack. And I had like very little joy in my life. On the outer world, when you looked at Chrystal, you would think, wow, her life is perfect. But inside, I was sad, I was lonely, I felt weighted down, alone, and I had all this responsibility and I had to be good. And I was shown that I had never really experienced the bliss of my own existence. And I was told, I was told that each soul is here. And this is like verbatim, and I think it's a message that I like to share every time I tell the story. Each soul is here for the bliss of its own existence. And then this present says, and that means you, which was shocking to me, because I was like, I'm here for bliss. I thought I was here to be good, to be responsible, to get things done, to take care of my children. No, you're here for bliss. We're all here for bliss. You are here for bliss. And I was like, oh. And that part of that bliss was to be able to see the sun, like to experience another day, the sun rising and the sun setting, and the glory and the metaphor of that, of like new beginnings. And then secondly, I was shown that I had never smelled freshly cut grass. You know, when someone's mowing
Yeah.
the lawn, like, it's
I
kind of
smell it all the
because
time.
you hear, like, you know, don't forget to smell the roses. But I was basically shown the earthiness of Mother Earth, that I think freshly cut grass kind of embodies that earthy smell of like the gift of being on this beautiful planet. When you think about Gaia, Mother Earth, like everything we are comes from her, like our substance, our air, our water, our bodies are born of Gaia. And like I had never really valued our beautiful planet. And then thirdly, and most poignantly, I think from the soul's perspective, is that I had never really reached out and physically touched someone. I mean, obviously I had us combing my kids' hair. I had 3 children. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I had touched people, but I think the importance what I was shown is that in another experience of existence, we don't have bodies. We don't have physical senses. We don't, in the way that we do as a human. And as a human, we have this incredible ability to reach out and touch each other too. And there's studies that show if you don't have physical contact, I mean, you literally will get sick. You may even die. Children have, after Second World War, were taken care of by nurses, but there was too many of them to be cradled or held. And many of these children, even though they had substance, they had food, they had care, they were dying because they had no contact.
Physical contact. Yeah.
It's so important. So I was shown that, and like if you meet me, you're going to get a hug. Like I
Yeah.
think hugs are like so healing, and
Yep.
it's just sharing a love and energy. And
Yeah.
during those darker periods of my life when I was alone and I didn't have a maid and I was raising my children, I didn't really have a lot of physical contact, but somehow my soul knew. And so I would book one or twice a week a massage. And I really am a big advocate of like some kind of body work. If you're not in a physical relationship with someone, or if there's not, some cultures they don't even touch. I mean, they're just like,
Yeah.
So, and I think that was really important for me was to have body work and even yoga, because when I teach yoga, I'm always adjusting people, which I may be the only person in that week that lays hands on them, that touches their feet, that arranges their posture. And it's also touching with intention. There's a healing quality to touch when you
It's a
physically
kindness.
touch
There's a
them with
kindness to it. Yeah.
kindness and grace and intentionality to help them or make their life better
Mm-hmm.
or just love
Love
them.
it.
Just love.
Yeah.
Yeah, just love
Love
them.
it.
So I was shown these three things and I was like, oh, that's interesting, but it's too late for me because I couldn't fathom, like watching from above, seeing my body going through what my body was going through, that I was going to survive. And I said, it's too late for me. I'm going to die. But it was like there was a sadness about it. Like, oh, I wish I had known, like the gifts of being human, the gifts of being alive, that we're here for bliss. I didn't know any of this. And it's not that anything in my life would have been different, but the reframing would have made it different.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of surrendered to the fact, well, it's too late. I'm going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, I think I went unconscious. I'm not sure how I got back into my body, but I ended up waking up at the bottom of this 80-foot cliff, the bottom of the mountain,
Wow.
after slamming into a wall of ice. Our Jeep was upside down. There was complete silence in the Jeep. I think I was the only one who was really uh, basically uninjured in a really deep way. The guy that was driving was covered in blood, but he said he was okay. I couldn't find Carmen. And I just remember feeling like, oh my God, I'm alive. Like I had never been so happy to be alive because I remember thinking when I was falling, like, oh, my poor children, they're going to be orphaned without their mother. Of course, they'd have their dad, and then in that instance, I was shown we have so many different timelines that and I was actually shown I could leave the planet. It was a choice for me. Something I want to say is that everything that we do here is a choice. Nothing is imposed upon us, even though it may seem horrific. But I was
Yeah.
shown different choices, one of which I would die in the car wreck. That was a possibility in that moment. If my soul chose that, I could come back and have some major injuries and be in a wheelchair and so on and so forth. But when I thought about my children being orphaned, I was instantly shown and understood in a ripple of instant knowing that they would be fine without me. I saw them go to my funeral, mourn their mother,
Mm-hmm.
go through whatever grieving they had, continue with their life, get married, go to college, have children, and fine without me, which was shocking. Because, your
Yeah.
mother thinks like you're the pinnacle part of your children's life, when in actuality, you
It's
get
the opposite.
you get to foster these children through their lives. You get to have them for a certain amount of time, but each soul is here for the bliss of its own experience, with or without you. And so, the whole backpack of responsibilities, I got to be a good mother, turned instantly into I get to be a good mother. I get to hug my children again. So I climbed out the upside down Jeep. I scaled up this this 80-foot cliff. Woohoo. And I
Wow.
got to the top
Yeah.
and
You should
there
teach
was a
rock
big,
climbing.
yeah, I know, right? And there was a big line of cars, and the car that hit us was still at the top, and they were asking me, "Are you okay?" Nobody could believe that I was in that car. Um, and here's when it got really interesting because I don't know if you guys have ever seen this movie called The Dead Zone,
I've
but
heard of it, but never
it's
I
never
an
think
saw
I've
it.
old
seen it.
movie.
Hmm.
It's an old movie
Hmm.
where when you go through this kind of out of body near death experience, many times, and I've read many, many stories about this, but I experienced it myself, it's almost like a portal opens.
Hmm.
And like I immediately became very intuitive. And I knew somebody was going to steal my purse. And I was at the top of this mountain, but I couldn't force myself to go back down. But I kept begging somebody to get my purse because I had this vision of a man in rubber boots stealing my purse. And why that was important is because I have my airline tickets. Remember, we were on our way to the airport. I have my credit cards and my money, and there's no way to get home without all of that. So I
Hmm.
was like begging someone to get my purse, which it never showed up. Somebody did definitely steal the purse. We ended up at the hospital. I think they air flighted Carmen, and I'm not sure because it was all a blur.
Hmm.
I know, I don't even sure how I got there, but we were at the hospital. I think it was an ambulance. And when we came in, I remember there was this male nurse, and he was like questioning whether we had been drinking and saying that another person had come in the day before with less injuries than my cousin, and she had died. And so he said something to the effect, if you guys have been drinking or doing drugs, that's manslaughter. And I was like, what? I don't even drink. And the guy that was driving, I think he had like one glass of wine in the afternoon, but he definitely was not drinking. I was like, we weren't drinking, we don't do drugs. And I pushed my way into the emergency room where they had Carmen on a gurney. And I went over and I put my hand on her, and I felt this bolt of lightning go through the crown of my head, through my body, out my hands, ripple through, and she literally had like a little ripple in her body. And I was like, oh, she's going to be fine. I
Wow.
knew immediately she was going to be fine. And then that same nurse that had told me about manslaughter came in, grabbed my arm, and said, you can't be in here. And when he did that, I saw um, it was so terrifying because if anyone touched me, I saw all of their fear, all of their joy. It was like an instant download of what their life was like. And I saw that the night before he had been physically abusive with his significant other, I felt it as though I were her, like her in the corner screaming, "Stop! Stop! Stop!" And I was like, "Ah!" I pushed him away. And I was like, what is going on? Because I'm not the kind of girl that would be hanging shingles or reading cards. Like that was not Chrystal Rae. I didn't know what auras were, but suddenly I was seeing auras around people. I knew their deepest fears, their greatest joys.
Hmm.
And it was like I was still in shock from the accident too, because that was when you go flying off an 80-foot cliff,
Yeah.
tumble 10 times, like I was shaking, my body was in
Hmm.
shock. So I went running to the bathroom and I was just kind of in a corner, like just like, what is going on? Like I had no idea what was going on. And then finally a nurse came in and she was really nice. I remember she said, we need to x-ray your neck because my neck was really hurting. And I said, I'll come out as long as that male nurse doesn't touch me again. It's nowhere to be seen. So they took me to get my neck x-rayed. And this is where it gets really interesting again. Because remember, I had this timeline, and the timeline that I was shown when I was in this out-of-body experience was that I would come back and that I would write a book and that I would tell the world that love is all that matters.
Wow.
And that's what like lit my soul up. And I was so excited. And it's kind of funny and ironic. And again, the universe has a great sense of humor because it was the little girl who felt unloved, unworthy, that couldn't even maintain a relationship. And this little girl was going to come back and write a book and tell the world that love is all that matters. And
Hmm.
that's what made her excited, this woman now. So so when they took the x-rays, they came back and they said, we're sorry to tell you, but your neck is broken.
Wow.
And I was like, no, that
It
wasn't on
can't be.
that was not on my timeline. And I remember I put my hand on my neck and I felt that same energy. And I said, you need to redo that. And so the second, third, and fourth, they took four x-rays. I had no break in my neck, which they could not, no one could explain. And I had to sign my rights away to leave the hospital. They don't want to let me go. They weren't
Mhm.
responsible if my neck was broken, and they
Mhm.
wanted me to stay overnight. And I'm saying, why am I going to stay overnight when there's no break in my neck?
Mhm.
So they let me go because I mean, my goal was to get back to my children, and I definitely did not want to stay in the hospital overnight.
How old were your children?
My children at that time were like 10 and 8,
Yeah.
Mm.
at the age of my grandchildren now.
Nah, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so then longer story, but let me just say, fast forward, went back to Dallas and got to reunite with my children. And, but I was having some of the residual effects of this near-death experience. I was very sensitive to light
Mm.
and sound. And I
Mhm.
kind of hid away in my bedroom. And I definitely didn't want people touching me because that was way too much information. So about after 2 weeks, I realized like, okay, I have to come back to real life. Like I have two children that need me. I need to get it together. And shortly after that, I went to visit Carmen, who, again, as I mentioned, had had the bunt of the
Yeah.
injury in the
Hmm.
accident. She had broken every bone in her face.
Oh.
She was
Wow.
in a coma and she had 90% brain damage.
Oh my God.
Mm.
And it was, so I went to see her because I hadn't seen her. And it was about 2 or 3 weeks after this accident. She was still in the recovery hospital. And I remember coming into the room. Her mom was there, the doctor was there, and there was a nurse there. And I remember seeing Carmen, and it really scared me because remember, she was this beautiful woman in the prime of her life. And all of a sudden, I saw this crumpled woman on the bed that had, rubber
Yeah.
bands for teeth and a bloated face, and every bone was broken. I did not recognize her. And
Mhm.
it scared me. And I
Wow.
remember what I said to myself. I said, this is your cousin, and you love her. And it just kind of calmed me down. And I walked over to Carmen. And again, remember, I'm feeling everyone's emotions. And I could feel the anger of her mom that she had like judged that the fact that her daughter was in this condition was my fault because I invited her on this trip and she was not happy to have me there. But I walked over anyway and I put my hands on Carmen's feet again and I said, Carmen, it's Chrystal. And she opened her eyes. She
Wow.
opened her eyes
Wow.
and she sat up, which surprised both her mother and the doctor and the nurse.
Mhm.
And she insisted on getting out of bed and she had her little IV and she wobbled over to me and she said, Chrystal, I'm in the light. I've never been so radiant. I'm gleaming. I'm a star. So I want you guys to remember what I told you at
Yeah.
the beginning of
When
this.
you were a child, you were a
I was
star.
shown that there's no empty space in the universe and that the light or the energy, the photons that were more radiant, those were stars, and that's what we are.
Mhm.
And remember, I also asked God, the universe, the divine, to prove to me before I died, not after, that there was truly a God. And again, this affirmation, like what had to happen for her to do that, right? So she got back in bed, she laid down, and she immediately went back into coma. I came
Oh,
back several more times. Every time I would come in, she would wake up, she would tell me things. Like one time she told me she had three guardian angels or three beings of light around her, that they had been with her for lifetimes. They have been with her since the beginning of time, and they will be with her for always, and they were her guardians, and that they loved her, and that she was being held and supported in this experience.
Mm.
And the other time I came in, she said, "Don't forget." She sat out of bed and she said,
Mhm.
"Don't forget to put in your book that sound and light are the future of medicine." And this is something that I was told when I was in this presence and this
Mhm.
divine experience. I was shown that that sounded, or I was told, put this in your book,
Mhm.
Sounding Like the Future of Medicine. And I want to remind you guys that this is more than 30 years ago now. Now science has confirmed, and they're using
hmm.
sound
Yeah.
and light for healing, which is why I lead a sound bath every Friday night. I call it Friday Night Done Right.
Oh, that's so I went to one. I went to a sound bath.
It
Yeah.
is with the right practitioner, and I'm going to say this because there's
Mhm.
practitioners and there's practitioners, because the intention of the practitioner and the instruments that they use and the love that they imbue is what makes it so powerful. But so I was shown that sound and light, and finally, the last time I came in, her mom uninvited me. Her mom thought I was doing some kind of like poltergeist or something.
Some kind of
She thought it
witchcraft
was,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, she thought it was, and I get it.
Mm-hmm.
She was a Catholic lady, and this was scary to her, so no judgment on her. But I lost contact with Carmen.
Mm-hmm.
And my life continued on.
Mm-hmm.
I learned how to, by the way, shut that energy door
Mm-hmm.
down so
Yeah.
that I didn't have to know everyone's thoughts and feelings. Because as I said, I didn't come back to be a psychic. I came back to tell the world that
Mm-hmm.
love is all that matters. I came back to be a healing force in the world, to
Mm-hmm.
first heal myself, which took me many years to do, because I felt like if I'm going to write a book and tell the world that love is all that matters, I need to be in a place where I can embody that love,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Mm-hmm.
which is what I when I wrote the book, which I just finished it last year, it took me over 30 years to get to that point where I felt
Wow.
like I could embody this experience. The experience is so profound that like there's no way that you could condense it into a book. So I tried to distill it down in
Mm-hmm.
the verbiage that's most um, authentic for me, which I'm very poetic soul and very pragmatic in my thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very beautiful, pragmatic, poetic book. There's no religious dogma in there, but there is absolute wisdom spilling off the page. And my goal was, when I was writing this book, was to share this message of unconditional love. But also, if you were to open my book, any page,
Mm-hmm.
you would find someone that loves you. And I feel like we're all connected on a soul
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
And if this book finds you, then it's meant for you. And the love that connects us, I'm sure, even you beautiful three ladies here, I'm sure we've had many lives together. And so we decided we'd meet in this life through this venue and remind the world through this experience and all the other things that you wonderful women are doing and sharing messages like this to the world. So I want to say thank you and salute you for that, by the way.
No,
Well, you,
thank you, thank you, thank you.
you're just amazing. Now you came back with a gift because this does happen with a lot of
Yeah,
people that have
yeah.
had NDEs, but you were able to shut it off.
Yes. Now,
Okay.
people ask me often, like, can you still like have this healing touch, or do you know? And my answer to that is always the same thing. We're always doing that,
Mm-hmm.
each one of us, in
Mm-hmm.
our own level of consciousness. Some people, like, when they're around, flowers grow and plants grow, and other people, because of the level of consciousness that they're at of lack, flowers die and don't
Mm-hmm.
blossom. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're always interacting with the universe. It's not like we're isolated or alone. Like every single person has this effect. So yes, I do have that healing quality, as do many other people, because I keep my consciousness high. But there are moments when I'm in also dark places. Last year, I went through a really horrific divorce, which I don't recommend for anyone. Uh,
Mhm.
I
Well,
was I was
we've been through it.
I was single for 28 years because I didn't want to get divorced again. I didn't want to be my mother. And I married someone that was a big, it turned out to be a big scandal and a big con artist. And it was not what I thought it was going to be. But, I'm really grateful for it. And here's why.
Mm.
Because as a result of that divorce, again, that little girl that felt unworthy, that felt unloved, she showed up again. I was like, wait, what? I thought you were done with. I thought you were healed, but there was another level of healing,
Mm-hmm.
another level of abandonment, another level that I got to experience, and betrayal and whatever happened to me
Mm-hmm.
to empower me. And now when I look at someone else who's been through something horrific, and that was really horrific,
Mm-hmm.
I can say, yes, I've been there too. I
Yeah.
mean, truthfully, ladies, like, I have been raped, I've been pillaged, I've had, friends betray me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
people look at me and it's like, you judge a book by its cover, and they think this pretty little perfect life. I have had to scratch and crawl and
Mm-hmm.
pull myself out of dark places more than anyone I know, truthfully, because my mission is such that I'm like, I am going to, no matter what happens, I'm going to use it fuel for the fire
Mm-hmm.
of love. So I say, throw all opposites into the fire of love until only love is left. And that's been the journey of my life. And I'm so grateful that I had that experience, even though I don't recommend it, because I didn't
Yeah.
even know that there was a part of me that still needed to be healed and that still was, crying in the dark all by herself.
Yeah.
I had no idea. So I don't think we're cooked and we're done. And just because you've had a spiritually transformative experience means that you're invincible. That's a big misconception.
Yeah, I know.
And some people go through what you've gone through, and it's not as beautiful as your life now is.
Right.
They sort of have a lot of revenge and anger, and
They don't want to come
just
back because they know
yeah,
how, yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah,
it's
you have the
understandable.
but your
opposites.
message is so different. It's just love is all that matters, and that's beautiful. And about bliss, what was that saying that you were told about bliss? Like,
Each soul is here for the bliss of its own existence. And here's the important part of that quote, because it was directed to me, but I think it's directed to the listener. And that means you. You are here for bliss, which I was like, what? I'm here for bliss? Oh my God.
but
And
doesn't
so,
that just sound good? Like you really want to be grateful about everything when you hear that. Like we're
and
just
it's
here for bliss.
Yeah.
and part of the bliss, which in here's the caveat that most people don't really realize, that part of your bliss
Mm-hmm.
is the dark nights, is the betrayal,
Mm-hmm.
is the hurt, is the loss, is the horror,
Mm-hmm.
all of that, is the joy, is the blossoming,
So
is
you're all bliss because you've been through it all.
I've
Yeah.
been through it all.
Yeah, and we need the opposites. We cannot have love if we haven't had lack. So it's like the yin and yang, right? I mean, we need both.
I
And
Right.
it's
think
part
I
of
don't
it.
know.
Yeah.
I think that the opposite gives you contrast so that you can appreciate what is all encompassing and the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that everyone needs the level of suffering that I went through, or that I know that some of you guys have mentioned that you went through. I think that some lifetimes you come in and you say, bring it on. You know what I mean? Like you say, this is going to be an important life for me. I'm ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a really hard race, like a marathon. Give it all to me. And like you don't win the race at the beginning, you win at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
Exactly.
64 years old now, so I'm getting to the latter part of my life.
Oh,
I'm super happy. I
Love it.
love being 64.
You
exactly.
look gorgeous. That's another thing. You're gorgeous
Yeah.
inside and out. Annie has one more question because I know
The one
you
that
have to go.
the
Okay.
one that I always ask.
Yeah.
You for our audience, what message would you give? We're an international podcast to humanity. After everything you've been through, I mean, if you can tell them in one sentence, two sentences.
I mean, the ultimate message would be that love is all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
But let me say it in this way. Like each soul is here for the bliss of its own existence, and what you do matters. And so many times we think that life is about doing these big things like get the diploma, cure cancer. But what I was shown and what I experienced is that the most important thing that you can do in your life is to be kind and compassionate and to care about yourself and others. When you could be cruel, be kind. When you could hurt, help.
Mm-hmm.
When you could abandon, stay.
Mm-hmm.
You could hate, love.
Those are beautiful words.
Beautiful.
Oh,
Very,
It-
very beautiful.
It's a choice, right? We have a choice.
And it's hard, but the way to do it, because I can say that I always make the joke that like I'm going to get a big E for effort because I don't always succeed.
I love it.
Right.
But you have to shift the compass. Like, you make these tiny shifts. And I always say, start small, don't wait for the horrific storm to try and, conquer your fear. Conquer it every single day because you have always two choices in life, and that's either to love or fear.
Mm-hmm.
So like, at the stoplight, you get angry at the stoplight, right? That's a moment to shift the compass and say, okay, I trust that it's a red light because maybe I was going to get in an accident. Let me choose to see the good here. Or maybe I'm supposed to look at the sky. Maybe I get to take a deep breath. Like you start to shift. Or someone does something that disappoints you in a small way. And that's when you shift the compass. Let me see if I can or maybe you just need to have more boundaries in your life and you start that in small ways so that when the big challenge comes, you're ready.
So you
Yep.
be aware. You're aware of yourself, and you can keep
Yeah.
practicing this, and it sort of it
Start
changes
loving
you.
yourself,
Yeah, and
start
just be
loving life,
grateful.
move from gratitude, trust
Mhm.
that the universe has got your back because it does,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and just start seeing the good, even in the bad. Like, I don't
Yeah.
understand this. There's so many things I can't reconcile in life, the
Mhm.
horror, the rape, the abuse, and
Mhm.
I say, I can't understand it, but I choose to see the good anyway. I choose to be the good. I want to make the world a better place by making myself a better person. I can't control anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
If we all did that, can you imagine if we all said, today I want to be a little bit better person than I was yesterday?
It would be a beautiful world.
Instead
The
of saying,
best
Heaven on
version.
earth.
there is broken and that's why no,
Yeah.
we get to fix our own selves.
Yeah. Our best version of yourself.
The next most radiant version of yourself is always waiting to come into fruition. All you have to do is shift the compass. And those little decisions that we make on a daily basis, they change everything.
Mm-hmm.
So people, because I know you said you're a life coach, I think people think that these big crossroads are where they made these decisions. But the truth is, what got you to those crossroads were little bitty decisions.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had made different decisions, you'd be at different crossroads.
I
So
love it.
it's a little things, it's the little things that matter. And that's what I try to live my life from this. It's my intention to live my life by every moment asking one very important question. And that is, what would love say, do, or be? In
Love
this
it.
sense, what would love do? What would love say? What would love be? And I don't always make it. Sometimes my highest expression of self is pretty low.
Yeah. Self-love.
But I
Starts
forgive
with
myself.
self-love.
I give myself grace and I say, that's the best I have today. Tomorrow I'll do better.
I love
You
it.
should make some t-shirts.
I know, right?
Yeah, they would sell. They would be very beautiful.
Definitely.
Chrystal, we really appreciate you. And can people get a hold of you from your website? Because we can put it
Yes.
in the description.
Yes, they can. They can go to my website. They can also email me. I think emailing me sometimes is the easiest. It's crystalraysoul@gmail.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
crystalraysoul@gmail.com. And they can also sign up for a online 30-minute interview or like chat with me. So one of the things that I love to do is as mentorship. So I don't necessarily charge for this because it's just something I get to do, but I only give 30 minutes of my time and I'll make an appointment and you can online book that appointment with me and hopefully my soul will have a gift for your soul and we'll have
That's
this.
so beautiful for you to
It is.
do. That's
Thank you.
amazing. That's so amazing. Chrystal, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And
Thank you
we're
guys for
very
having
grateful
me.
to have
And
you.
congratulations on what you're doing. You're beautiful,
Yeah.
radiant beings of light. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
You are
Chrystal.
beautiful.
Thank
You are
you.
very beautiful. We'll
I
talk to you.
apologize. I came in late. I am
It's okay. I'm
sorry.
glad you made it. We were waiting for you.
I know I was at work. I was driving.
Well, I'm glad
Yeah.
you made it. And I got
But
to meet
I
you.
heard your words and they are completely beautiful and they I'm sure will change a lot of lives just by these words.
You're a light worker. Definitely. Yes.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chrystal.
Thank you, Chrystal.
Okay. Thank you, ladies.
Bye-bye.
Love you.